The answer is because I cared deeply about making a positive difference in helping the most vulnerable and supporting those who are most in need.
The answer is because I care deeply about making a positive difference in helping the most vulnerable and supporting those who need it most. A single quiet journey has done something Buckingham Palace rarely allows to happen. It has left questions hanging in the air that no polished statement seems able to settle. Queen Camilla's discreet trip to Scotland has stirred whispers across royal circles, and now Princess Catherine's careful search for answers appears to have brushed against a forgotten mystery stretching back 45 years, one that some believe could quietly reshape how the monarchy's modern story is remembered. Was this nothing more than a private escape, or the reopening of a chapter the family hoped would stay closed? So tell us early, do you think Catherine should keep digging? Drop your thoughts below and let us know whether this deserves a far deeper look. And if royal secrets fascinate you, like and subscribe because this story is only beginning. News of Camilla's quiet passage north moved through royal circles faster than almost anyone expected. What made it spread was not what had been said, but the strange silence surrounding it. There had been no announcement, no advance notice, no familiar entry on any public schedule. For a family whose every engagement is normally mapped out weeks ahead with military precision, that absence alone was enough to raise eyebrows. Staff reportedly noticed the trip appeared nowhere in the official diary, and no explanation followed it. Private visits are hardly unusual for the royals, yet the sheer level of discretion here felt different, and it invited the kind of speculation the palace usually works so hard to avoid. So why the silence, and why now? Catherine, according to those who know her measured nature, did not leap to conclusions. Years inside public life had taught her that surface appearances often mislead. Even so, she understood the value of noticing when a familiar pattern suddenly breaks. She is said to have quietly reviewed the official calendar, comparing recent engagements against the thin scraps of information that had surfaced. Nothing hinted at an urgent duty in Scotland. No brief statement of the sort that usually accompanies private family travel ever appeared. The lack of detail was becoming almost louder than the journey itself. And that, more than anything, is what kept her attention fixed. Scotland has never been just another location on the royal map. For generations it has stood as both a place of duty and a private sanctuary, a refuge where the weight of the crown could be set down, if only briefly. Estates, traditions, and decades of family memory have given it a meaning no other royal destination can match. So many defining moments have unfolded across its landscape, from quiet gatherings to periods of national reflection. Because of that, any unexpected visit there carries a weight a similar trip elsewhere never would. As Catherine turned the circumstances over in her mind, she reportedly began to wonder whether the destination itself might be the real clue. The timing, the privacy, the careful management of every detail. It all seemed unusually deliberate. There was no evidence of anything improper, and yet the decision to reveal so little only multiplied the questions. Why would a simple visit be wrapped in such careful silence? And what if the answer had been waiting quietly for decades? Some observers suggested the trip was nothing more than a deeply personal commitment, kept away from the cameras out of respect for privacy. Others allegedly wondered whether it touched an overlooked corner of royal history, something whose importance had faded from the public mind but never from within the family. Rather than treat rumor as fact, Catherine is said to have focused only on what could truly be verified. She sought context instead of conclusions, aware that history often hides its meaning until scattered events are finally viewed together. Trusted advisors reportedly urged patience, reminding her that royal tradition sometimes demands a privacy that is never publicly explained. Yet the more she studied the wider historical backdrop, the more she sensed that Scotland was not merely a destination. It felt like a starting point, the opening line of a story reaching back across decades. Why would this journey be hidden even from the closest royal watchers? What truly happened behind those quiet arrangements? And if the trip was entirely innocent, why had the palace corridors fallen so suddenly, so completely silent? Let's find out. As curiosity around the visit grew, the greatest source of intrigue remained everything left unsaid. The royal household had acknowledged almost nothing, leaving seasoned commentators with far more questions than answers. Private engagements have always been part of royal life, yet they usually come with at least a brief word to head off speculation. This time the silence only fueled it. Catherine, characteristically restrained, is said to have resisted dramatic assumptions and instead worked to understand the fuller picture. Reviewing recent appearances against the official record, she reportedly noticed how strangely isolated the Scotland visit seemed, cut off from the family's otherwise well-documented rhythm. That alone proved nothing, but it revealed just how carefully the journey had been handled. In royal life, even the smallest deviation draws attention, precisely because every movement is normally planned with such extraordinary care. As quiet conversations spread among correspondents and historians, competing explanations began to surface. Some believed the journey reflected nothing more than a private commitment away from public view. Others suggested long-standing friendships or family matters that simply deserved discretion. Neither could be confirmed, and no reliable evidence pointed firmly toward either. The uncertainty itself had become the story, a reminder that missing information often sparks more discussion than any official announcement ever could. And the more Catherine reflected on Scotland's place in the family's history, the more she understood why that particular ground carried such symbolic weight. For generations, it had been far more than a point on a map. It had hosted family gatherings, difficult conversations, moments of reflection, and some of the monarchy's most personal memories, from long summers at Balmoral to occasions that quietly shaped how the public saw the crown. That backdrop pushed Catherine to think beyond the present. Rather than judging the visit only through today's headlines, she reportedly weighed whether its meaning lay in connections stretching back decades. Public records and biographies had long documented how the early years of Charles and Camilla's relationship unfolded under relentless scrutiny. Those events remained woven into Britain's modern royal story, and any return to the places tied to that period could easily reawaken old curiosity. Still, she refused to draw conclusions before the facts were clear, aware that history is always more tangled than a headline admits. Yet she also knew that certain places guard their memories long after the world has looked away. So what history was being quietly protected in Scotland? And could Catherine be standing at the very edge of a revelation no one was ready to face? Keep watching. As she reflected further, Catherine's thoughts reportedly drifted to a very different Britain, one that existed more than 45 years earlier. The early 1980s marked one of the most intensely watched periods in modern royal history, when public fascination reached extraordinary heights and every personal choice seemed to carry national weight. It was an age when tradition, expectation, and private feeling collided in ways that would echo for decades. Long before Camilla became queen, her friendship with Charles had already drawn enormous attention, unfolding as he prepared for the future awaiting him as heir. Historians have often described those years as a time when personal happiness and royal duty pulled in opposite directions, shaped not only by emotion but by centuries of constitutional tradition and unforgiving public scrutiny. Britain expected the monarchy to project stability, and every appearance was read through the lens of national identity. The marriage of Charles and Diana became one of the defining moments of that era, celebrated worldwide as a symbol of hope for the crown's future. Yet behind the spectacle, historians have long debated the pressures placed on those closest to the institution and how those pressures affected relationships formed long before the wedding captured the globe's attention. Through all of it, Scotland remained more than scenery. Balmoral had long offered the family a rare escape from the formal demands of public life, a place where some of their happiest memories were made, and where other moments grew significant precisely because they happened away from the cameras. For generations, it balanced duty with reflection, tied to both celebration and difficult decisions alike. As Catherine considered that history, she reportedly realized the recent journey could not be understood through present events alone. Places preserve meaning long after circumstances shift, and Scotland had witnessed several defining chapters of the monarchy's modern story. 45 years had changed public perception, introduced new generations, and transformed the roles of those once at the center of fierce debate. Yet the emotional weight of that period had never truly vanished. Rather than hunting for scandal, she searched for context, recognizing that understanding today sometimes means revisiting yesterday with fresh perspective instead of fresh suspicion. And the deeper she explored those formative years, the clearer it became that the visit might not be a new mystery at all, but an invitation to re-examine a familiar story whose quiet significance had endured beneath the surface. What really unfolded behind closed doors 4.5 decades ago? Was it duty or something far more personal shaping choices we are only now beginning to grasp? And who truly bore the consequences? Stay with us. With each passing day, Catherine reportedly kept returning to the same question: why Scotland? Rather than chase dramatic answers, she chose to revisit the well-documented history binding the family to the country, aware that the clearest clues often hide in records that have been public for years, yet rarely examined together. She is said to have studied published biographies, official royal timelines, archived engagements, and historical accounts tracing the monarchy's bond with Scotland across generations. Individually, none revealed anything startling. Together, they painted a far richer portrait of a place where traditions were preserved, relationships strengthened, and important conversations unfolded away from the attention that followed the family everywhere else. As she read on, recurring themes became impossible to ignore. Scotland appeared again and again whenever the royals entered periods of transition. Anniversaries, private reflections, moments of personal decision, so many of them shared the same setting. Historians had long noticed the pattern, though it rarely drew wide discussion because each event was remembered in isolation rather than as part of a continuing thread. Old diaries from former staff and memoirs from those who had worked closely with the household added another layer. Their experiences differed, yet many described Scotland as a place where the family could step briefly away from ceremony and turn toward personal matters. Those recollections revealed no hidden secrets, but they reinforced how far the country's importance stretched beyond official duty, resting instead in memory, continuity, and tradition. Why did the same references surface across decades of royal history? And what might happen if Catherine followed a trail no one expected her to reopen? Stay glued. By this stage, the scattered fragments no longer felt isolated. As Catherine kept reflecting on documented history, a broader picture slowly took shape. Events that once seemed unrelated now appeared linked by a single recurring thread, not through hidden revelations, but because history so often gains new meaning when viewed as a whole. Scotland was no longer merely the setting of a recent visit. It had become the constant backdrop to the monarchy's most personal chapters, binding generations through shared tradition and lasting memory. Biographies and official records pointed consistently toward the same conclusion. Time and again, Scotland had been the place the family sought privacy during moments of deep personal significance, whether marking milestones, weathering difficult periods, or simply being together away from duty. The contrast between public perception and private reality grew steadily clearer. Public discussion had always fixed on ceremonies and widely reported milestones, yet many of the family's most meaningful experiences had unfolded quietly, in places chosen for reflection rather than publicity. Scotland had long offered exactly that. Looking back across more than 4 decades, Catherine reportedly recognized that history is rarely defined by a single event. It develops instead through countless decisions, relationships, and traditions that gradually shape an institution's identity. The story of Charles and Camilla had traveled a remarkable distance, while from intense public debate to eventual acceptance within the modern monarchy, and understanding that journey required far more than remembering headlines. Some places matter not because they conceal dramatic secrets, but because they safeguard memories that continue to shape the generations still to come. If the journey honored history, what particular legacy had drawn Camilla back to Scotland at this exact moment? And what truth might have been hiding in plain sight all along? Stay tuned. By the time Catherine stepped back to weigh everything, the story looked utterly different from where it had begun. What first seemed a mystery around a quiet visit had grown into something far broader. The journey itself now mattered less than the history it invited people to revisit. Rather than uncovering hidden revelations, she found herself confronting a larger truth about how public memory shapes the monarchy's reputation long after the events themselves have passed. Across 45 years, she reportedly realized that every generation inherits not only titles, but the stories bound to them. Some become symbols of pride, others remain subjects of enduring debate. The relationship between Charles and Camilla had long been one of those defining chapters, its public perception transformed slowly by time, milestone, and changing values, until what once divided opinion became part of the monarchy's continuing evolution. Scotland held a unique place within that shifting story, representing continuity through celebration and uncertainty alike, offering space for reflection few other residences could. Its significance was never about geography alone. It had become a symbol of the Crown's enduring connection to family tradition, a reminder that private moments quietly shape public institutions in lasting ways. Reflecting on that legacy, Catherine reportedly gained a deeper appreciation of the delicate balance every future monarch must protect between the openness that strengthens public understanding and the privacy that shields meaningful tradition from being flattened into headlines. That realization shaped her sense of her own future role, one that demands respecting the institution's history while helping it stay relevant to a changing society. Learning from the past did not mean being trapped by it. In the end, the 45-year mystery proved less about discovering forgotten secrets than about rediscovering familiar history through a different lens. Camilla's journey became symbolic not because it exposed hidden truths, but because it encouraged renewed reflection on the lasting bond between memory, place, and legacy. As Catherine looked toward the future, she understood that the monarchy's greatest strength would never lie in rewriting its history, but in remembering it honestly, with perspective and an enduring commitment to the generations still to come. So what do you think? Did Camilla's Scotland visit simply honour history, or did Catherine uncover a forgotten royal legacy? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this story pulled you in, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, because the next chapter of The Crown's quiet secrets is closer than you think.